Welcome learners. The topic of today's discussion is Social Work Practicum 5 Fieldwork Journal. In this practicum, we will discuss about the fieldwork that has to be conducted along with the theory courses in BSWG, Bachelor's of Social Work program. Fieldwork is an important component in social work program, and it is mandatory for all learners who enroll for this program to undertake fieldwork, to complete fieldwork, and then only the program is completed. Fieldwork in Social Work Practicum 5 consists of 25 days. 25 days include 5 individual conferences, 5 orientation visits, and 15 days of concurrent visits. Fieldwork has to be conducted under the supervision of a professionally qualified social worker. Learners are allotted study centers, and the coordinator of the study center will provide the learners with an approved fieldwork supervisor or academic counselor. Completion of fieldwork is mandatory for starting the practicum for the next semester, but one may appear for the term examination and then subsequently complete the fieldwork practicum. So this is the first phase sheet of the Fieldwork Practicum Journal 5. The phase sheet consists of the initial introduction of the learner, the name, enrollment number, address, the phone number, email ID, the enrollment number and address of the study center, regional center, also the place where the student is going to undertake the fieldwork concurrent visits. It should also have the signature of the student and phone and mobile number of the supervisor. Now it is very important to note that all informations which are sought in the phase sheet are completed. Fieldwork journal is a precious document and learner must keep it in a safe place at home or while traveling or at the study center. It is also advised that the learner keeps a note of their fieldwork day-to-day proceedings and thus also keep a separate personal diary and keep noting in that. It is also suggested that after completing the fieldwork practicum, writing the reports, the learner should keep a copy of the fieldwork journal before submission at the regional center. Also, while submitting the fieldwork journal at the regional center, the learner should keep an acknowledgement slip. The journal will be submitted to the Student Evaluation Division by the regional center along with the evaluation proforma which is submitted by the supervisor. Also, it has to be mentioned here that the supervisor who is supervising the learner will provide a certificate. Now, the proforma of the certificate is also provided in the practicum book, where the supervisor will ensure that the fieldwork learner has completed all the components, including the induction meeting, the 5 orientation visits to 5 different social welfare agencies, 15 days of concurrent visits in 1 social welfare agency, and also participated in 5 individual conferences, and then sign. The supervisor needs to sign in this document. Certain step-by-step procedure are there in the journal. Learner has to follow these steps and then it becomes easy for the learner to do the fieldwork practicum. First and foremost, the induction meeting, which is a meeting with the supervisor and the students who are placed in the fieldwork practicum. In the induction meeting, the fieldwork supervisor will explain the objectives of the fieldwork, how the fieldwork needs to be done, what is the time period of fieldwork, what are the concepts, methods that has to be followed in the fieldwork practicum, and how the reports are to be written, what is individual conference. So all these informations are given by the supervisor, and any doubt by the learner is clarified by the supervisor during the induction meeting. After the induction meeting, the next step is individual conference. Individual conference is the meeting with the supervisor regarding the queries of fieldwork. So mandatorily, the learner has to complete 5 individual conference minimum during the course of the whole fieldwork practicum. Individual conference is important because here the learner gets a chance to discuss their problems, the progress of their work, the methods that needs to be followed, and any other issues that they may be facing during their fieldwork with their supervisor. The supervisor will give concrete suggestions on how to go about the fieldwork, how to deal with problematic issues faced by the learner in the fieldwork. And so individual conference is mandatory for the learner. And then the supervisor will also guide the students regarding the various other aspects like placing the learner in the fieldwork agency for concurrent visits, where the student should go for their orientation visits. So fieldwork supervisor will help the learner choosing the agencies or settings in which they can go for their orientation visits, and also choosing the agency in which they need to do their 15 days of concurrent fieldwork. After the individual conference, the orientation visits will start. Initially, the learner will go to 5 different agencies or fieldwork settings and write the reports in the fieldwork journal. So orientation visits will give an idea of what are the several settings in social work. After the 5 orientation visits, the learner will write the report, 5 reports, and again meet the supervisor during the second individual conference. So here the learner will discuss their fieldwork notings of the previous orientation visits that they have made, the reports they have written. They will discuss with the supervisor regarding the orientation visits, and in this individual conference, the learner will discuss where he or she wants to do the 15 days of concurrent fieldwork. After the second individual conference, the learner will start doing their concurrent visits. The initial 5 concurrent visits will be important. After the 5 concurrent visits, and another third individual conference where the student will come back to the supervisor, discuss their learning during the first 5 concurrent visits, and so on and so forth. So this step-by-step process needs to be completed. Unless the 15 concurrent visits are over, learner is able to write the report, learner is able to write the community organization method report, and then finally submit the fieldwork journal to the supervisor. There are certain guidelines for the learner. It is very important that along with the theory components of Bachelor's of Social Work degree program, the learner also takes the fieldwork very seriously. It is an important component of 10 credits and it needs to be completed. Otherwise, incompletion of fieldwork will make the whole program incomplete. Learner will be unable to complete the program. Also, certain limitations the learner should understand regarding the time limit. 15 days of concurrent fieldwork is very limited time during a semester. So the learner should not have high expectations regarding the fieldwork. The basic idea is he or she is exposed to the social issues and also be able to apply the several methods that they learn during the theory courses. So there are also certain limitations of the agency regarding their funds, or the limitations of the agency regarding their resources, other limitations. So learners should be open to accept those limitations and continue their fieldwork. It is also important for the learner to use the journal meaningfully. Journal is like a guide. So all the step-by-step process, the reports of orientation visits, reports of concurrent visits, the pro forma are provided in the fieldwork practicum journal, and students should read those properly and then proceed for fieldwork and write the reports accordingly. In this semester, the student also needs to practice community organization, and a pro forma or a report of community organization is also given in the fieldwork journal as an example. The learner should read that example of community organization report and then accordingly write their own report. Now there are certain fieldwork settings which is also important that we mention here, because these are the settings from which the learner will choose their concurrent field visits. So broadly, we have the health settings like hospitals, community health centers, primary health centers, etc. We have the civic administration, social welfare departments, education departments, municipal offices, panchayat offices, educational settings like schools, colleges, non-formal adult education settings, open community, like several projects with women, children, projects on education, sanitation, potable drinking water, health, self-help groups are running by several NGOs are being run. And there are also scope of social work in correctional settings. Of course, separate permission needs to be taken to do fieldwork in correctional settings like prisons, police stations, homes established under the juvenile justice boards, and also we have other settings like education settings, schools, colleges, and we have several program implementation schemes like midday meal scheme, immunization projects, family planning projects, projects of immunization. There are also scope for fieldwork in media houses like print media, then faith-based organizations like Gurudwara, churches, and then of course one can also do fieldwork in courts by taking prior permission. So broadly, the other broad settings of fieldwork are NGOs working with women, children, aged, in the education department, then protective homes, palliative care centers, hospice care centers. Fieldwork is also possible in the corporate social responsibility wings of several corporate houses. There are homes for destitute, disaster-afflicted refugees and migrants, de-addiction and rehabilitation centers, homes for weaker sections. So these are the broad areas where the learner can choose to do their fieldwork, choose one particular setting and do their 15 concurrent fieldwork. So after choosing the concurrent fieldwork, the learner will start writing the report, and it is also very important that the log sheet has to be filled. So in the log sheet is kind of a attendance sheet. So here the learner will mention the date and with their signature, and also take the signature of the supervisor. So this log sheet needs to be completed. It is also important to paste one certificate from the organization or the settings where the learner is doing their 15 concurrent fieldwork visits. Now, I mentioned earlier about the induction meeting. Induction meeting is a meeting with the supervisor regarding the objectives of fieldwork and other aspects, details of the first orientation visit, etc. So the report of induction visit, there is a format. One has to write the date, the time, and the supervisor, name of the supervisor, and the detailed report, what was the discussion that was held during the induction meeting, and then the date of submission, comments by the fieldwork supervisor, signature, and date. Now, the report of individual conference, as I have mentioned, it is also very important that minimum 5 individual conferences is compulsory, and a learner should note that unsupervised fieldwork will not be accepted. Now, before starting concurrent field visits, the learner has to meet the supervisor and discuss regarding the organization to be chosen, discuss the process of fieldwork, learning plan, report writing, etc. So now these are the various aspects where individual conference is very important. Now, orientation visits, there are certain objectives the learner should keep in mind before proceeding for orientation visits. Orientation visits has to be done in 5 different fieldwork settings. So the main objective is that the learner should be exposed to several social problems and what are the services provided, what are the various programs, their ability to understand, develop the inquiry, how to develop an appreciation for social work intervention in these several programs, and what is the relation between the micro problems and the micro problems. So orientation visits have several critical objectives. When we write the report of the orientation visit, one particular format is provided in the fieldwork journal. Definitely you have to mention the name of the institution or the setting in which one is doing the orientation visits, and the address, the mission statement, the institutional objectives, who are the people who are working in the organization like chief executive officers, the board members, what are the kind of work they're doing, the several programs, what are the nature and number of beneficiaries, and which is the area of work, which areas they're covering, whether the agency is registered or not, what is the organizational structure, if there is a history that has to be mentioned, and what is the source of funding. And definitely one has to also mention the infrastructural facilities that are available with the agency, like the buildings, transport, communication, and what is the relationship of this particular agency with other agencies, other government departments, other Panchayati Raj institutions, other community-based organization, other organization like religious organizations. And also if the agency is facing any problem, that has to be documented very clearly. The learner should understand that the objective of orientation visit is to get an idea of how social work needs to be practiced. If there is any future plan of the organization, if they have received any recognition awards, and most important here is to note that the learner should critically analyze their fieldwork in about their orientation visit, what they have learned from their visit, and what is their experience in working as a group member, and what kind of problems and challenges they faced during their visit, and what are their future plan. So all this critical analytical report is expected from the learner. Even if the learner is going in a group for their orientation visit, maybe a group of 2-3 students are going, learner has to note that the report has to be written on their own. There should not be any copying cases. So learner has to write the report in their own language. So this is one format for the orientation visit, the same format, name, date, name of the organization, name of supervisor, and the kind of work that one has performed, date of submission, comments by fieldwork supervisor, signature of the supervisor. Now, after completion of 5 different orientation visits, the learner will proceed for concurrent visits. Concurrent visits are to be done in one particular fieldwork agency or setting. So 15 days of total concurrent visits needs to be completed, and pro forma is provided in the fieldwork journal. During the 15 days of concurrent visit, one has to write separate 15 days of visit and plus one report of community organization. So the space is also provided, and as I said, it is not one should not copy from any source or any other learner, and also definitely fieldwork needs to be done under the supervision of the fieldwork supervisor. Now, when we go look at the pro forma of the report of concurrent visit, one has to write the date, time spent in the agency, the activities performed, the observation related to the agency functioning, teamwork, assigned task, observation regarding client system and service delivery, administrative assignments if any, what kind of social work techniques the students use during their fieldwork practicum. It is also very important to note, because one has to understand that the whole purpose of fieldwork practicum is a hands-on experience, gaining a hands-on experience regarding the theory that they are learning in the theory papers. So in social work we have 6 methods in total, and community organization is one of the primary methods. And in this semester, the learner, you will be trying to understand what community organization method is and how it is practiced in the fieldwork. So this understanding is very much important. Now, coming to the community organization, as I said, it is a primary method of social work, macro practice. As a method, it uses the participation of the residents of the community in the efforts to improve their conditions. So the student goes to an open community, and be it any type of community, urban slum community or a rural community, and it is also a slow process. One cannot just go immediately, and one needs to build a rapport with the community members. One needs to understand the various issues that are prevalent in the community, and then one has to make a community profile. What are the felt needs of the community has to be understood. and learner has to approach the formal or informal leaders in the community, and if it is a village level meeting needs to be conducted, and if there are NGOs, voluntary organizations working in the community, so what issues the organizations are working, and what is the planning process, execution and evaluation, how they are doing. So all these aspects the learner has to understand during the practicing the method of community organization. So it is also advisable to enter the community through some known person, namely the community worker of the agency or any other person who are familiar with the community. Now, there are certain general format of writing the community organization report. Definitely, we have to first mention the what the community is, the introduction of the topic or the community organization report you are working on. You must mention the name of the community and why that particular community was chosen, and then before visiting the community, if the learner had some preconceived notions or any kind of inhibitions, that has to be noted down, and what was the process that was taken to initiate initiate entry into the community, the problems or challenges for during the initial visits of the community needs to be recorded. And what was the process of rapport building, how rapport was built with various members in the community. Definitely a community profile should be made, and it is important to understand how a community profile is written, and also the learner has to identify the issues pertaining to the community and plan for interventions that are required in the community. There are other ways like promoting education through youth volunteers. Then at the end, there are several other issues that a community faces, like sanitation issues, health issues, and then education. There are certain requirements regarding education. The learner has to explore all these issues of the community and think and write the report in a way how the social work intervention is possible in dealing with these kind of issues and challenges in the community. And after the community organization visits are made during the 15 days, the evaluation and report is very important. What was learned during the whole community organization visits, including all the aspects, needs to be recorded step by step. Now comes the self-evaluation report by the student. So at this stage, the learner has completed 5 orientation visits, and in between the learner has they have also done the induction meeting. The learner has completed 5 individual conferences, and in total 15 or concurrent fieldwork visits have also been done, and all the reports are being written. So now when it is also important to evaluate self after the whole fieldwork process, the student needs to reflect on their own learnings. What was their inhibitions prior starting their fieldwork in this semester, and during the course of 25 days of fieldwork, how the learner has developed his professional self, how his attitude has changed, what new skills the learner has developed, whether he or she is able to evaluate himself as a community worker, how a community worker would work, what are the challenges being faced in the community. So all these aspects the learner needs to do a self-evaluation and write a report. So now comes the self-evaluation report, and the proforma is given in the fieldwork journal, which includes the knowledge gained during the course of fieldwork, the skills developed, the attitude developed, and development of professional self. So at the end of the fieldwork, it is also important to mention briefly the summary. So at the end, the summary of report of the fieldwork on orientation visits, where the orientations visits were done, the agency or the setting, and the date that has to be mentioned as at the end of the journal. And similarly, all the names of the in which date which work was undertaken during the concurrent fieldwork. So that summary report should also be mentioned by giving date, the main activity performed during that particular date for the concurrent visits. And also the ICs, minimum 5 individual conference is essential in this semester of fieldwork. So date wise, mentioning the date, the learner should write very clearly what was the topic of discussion for individual conference, mentioning the specific dates, and that needs to be recorded in the summary report of individual conference. There is also a checklist which is provided at the end of the fieldwork journal, and so the learner, before submitting the fieldwork journal, should ensure that he or she has read the program guide very carefully, because program guide contains very important information regarding the whole Bachelor of Social Work degree program, and including the fieldwork practicum aspects. So several informations are given in the program guide. It is very important to read the program guide thoroughly, and then put a tick mark, and the guidelines for students are given at the beginning of the fieldwork journal. That guidelines the students should read carefully, and whether the individual conference, the face sheets are being filled. There are 2 face sheets as mentioned earlier, face sheet which has to be filled by the learner, and the face sheet which has to be filled by the fieldwork supervisor. That face sheet needs to also be completed. Also, the fieldwork practicum certificate is attached, and filled in log sheet is completed, attended the induction meeting and reports written, 5 orientation visits are conducted and the reports written, 15 concurrent visits done and reports written, report of community organization is completely written, and then 5 individual conferences are attended, reports are written, self-evaluation report and the summary report. So all this checklist has to be tick mark, has to be complete, and then only the learner can submit the fieldwork journal to the supervisor. So supervisor will give comments and write the global comments regarding the activities of the learner, the progress of the learner, and the fieldwork journal will be submitted to the regional center. From then the journal will be sent to student evaluation division for evaluation. So this is the broad aspect of fieldwork practicum, social work practicum 5, and any query the learners can write in this email ID bswinfo@ignou.ac.in. I hope this session on social work practicum 5 is useful for the learners. Thank you.